Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I'm going to be talking about some news that has been published today about the Israeli-Hamas war. I will do another video. I just finished a Zoom meeting based on an event through the Harbor Club, talking about this whole conflict with Israel and Hamas and the Palestinians. It was an interesting Zoom meeting, and I made some notes, things that I didn't know, things that I knew, just the perspective of the guest speaker. The guest speaker's name is John, I think it's pronounced Franchi, and ex-CIA guy. It's another one of those lectures where there's another ex-CIA guy. It seems like there's an awful lot of ex-CIA people that came from Harvard, but this is the third person that was tied to the CIA that I have seen. So this is an interesting perspective. Some things I disagreed with him. Other things I would agree with. So I'll mention that in the video upcoming on my assessment of that actual Zoom meeting. It just finished, and now I'm going to be talking about some of the news that was published. So let's start with playing, and then I'll comment on it. This is on Sky News. This is dealing with Australia. All right. This is the Sky News Australia. There's also Sky News England or UK, right? But Sky News Australia dealing with their personnel moving to the Middle East.
This force personnel and aircraft to the Middle East as part of its response to the Israel-Hamas conflict. The acting Prime Minister, Richard Marles, will announce all of this today, and Richard Marles is with us right now, so let's go straight to him, the acting Prime Minister as well as the Defence Minister. Richard, good to see you. So just elaborate on that point. What military assets and personnel are being sent to the region?
Well, good morning, Pete. We're sending 2 additional aircraft to the Middle East, which will take the total to 3. We're not saying where in the Middle East for security reasons, but we are also then sending a detachment of personnel which goes with those aircraft, and that's actually a significant number of people. The point of this is to support Australian populations that are in the Middle East, and it's really a contingency. We don't know exactly how this is going to play out in the Middle East. Obviously, the situation is volatile. We very much hope that it is contained to Gaza, but we are taking these steps now in the event that matters do get worse, and we're then in a position to support Australian populations. But I think
now this is another data point. In the news, the United States has mentioned that they were concerned that they might need to evacuate thousands of Americans from Israel. All right. So there, not only are we positioning military personnel with the potentiality of a larger regional war, maybe in Lebanon, maybe in Syria, maybe in Iran, maybe in Yemen, right? But there's this posturing by the Western powers that they may need to be evacuating their civilians, their citizens out of that region. I think this is what they're doing. The Australians are moving cargo ships, right, to be able to do an evacuation. Now they're sending probably military personnel and weapons probably into the region too. So there's probably a combination that's going on. The Marine expeditionary forces are now there. supposedly they're on a ship. They're not on land yet, according to that CIA guy that had the Zoom call today at the Harbor Club. Now we have the 2 aircraft carriers that are in the region, the Gerald Ford and the Eisenhower. So there is this concern that it's going to get much worse and that there's going to need to be evacuation. All right. So most likely, how this is going to play out, I think, is that they're going to try to drip feed some of these hostages from Hamas. You know, the hostages they took from Israel. The Hamas is going to release the hostages. All right, some of them drip feed, in hopes to be able to slow down the invasion timeline of the Israelis. I think the Israelis are going to say, enough is enough, no more waiting, we're going in. That may be within, you know, a few days from now, maybe a week. You know, this CIA guy that was talking, John, I think it's Franchi, is how it's pronounced. He was surprised that it hasn't happened already, and that it may take place in the next few days. I've also heard another data point in one of the news networks when they were talking to one of these analysts, these military planner analysts, that by the end of the month. All right. I'm kind of surprised that it didn't happen, you know, at the new moon, you know, which was the 14th. But, you know, we have a lot of players coming to the region, heads of state. They're trying to do these peace agreements and they're trying to release the hostages. But there's going to be a point where Israel is going to need to go into these tunnels and you know, take it out. What is interesting and what John said today on the call was that these tunnels are much more advanced than they were 15 years ago, and that some of the tunnel system can have trucks to drive in. Now he said they're not as big as, you know, the Lincoln Tunnel, you know, that's much more involved, but you can drive in trucks, you know, in some of these tunnels to be able to move equipment, and people can live down there. All right. In other tributaries of the tunnel system, it's more, you know, just kind of rudimentary, you know, and it's small quartered. So there are different tiers of space within the tunnel system, and advancement in infrastructure, right, in the tunnel system, which was something I did not know. And they've had approximately 20 years to develop this tunnel system. So, okay, with that said, let's continue with the video.
I think the point that we'd really want to make is that if you are in the region now and you want to leave, you should. You should take whatever commercial options are available to you, and you should be making your departure, because this is a very volatile situation, and no one knows exactly how it will play out.
Okay, so I sense some trepidation there in terms of this war being confined to Gaza. So is there a stronger chance in your view, or is there well, you tell me what the chances are of this widening into a broader Middle Eastern conflict?
Well, obviously, I'm not going to put a number on the chance, and we very much hope that this is contained. But we're watching what the whole world is watching, and we're doing it, holding our breath as the world is. And clearly, it's uncertain what happens here, and we want to make sure that if matters do get worse, that as a government we are prepared, and that we are prepared for any contingencies in relation to Australians who are in the region. But again, if you're an Australian in the region now, if you're in a place like Lebanon, don't rely on this. If you want to leave. Take the commercial options that are available to you now, because this is a volatile situation.
Unless you are one of those 77 people in Gaza.
Well, so it's actually 79 now. Is the number of people that we are talking with or working with in Gaza, and you're right, they are in a very difficult situation, and we continue to do everything within our power to try and find them alternatives. We're very much encouraging those people to move south within Gaza. We're working with the international community on a humanitarian corridor out of Gaza. We've seen that to a degree at the Rafah crossing point from Egypt with humanitarian supplies going into Gaza. But at this point, we've been unable to get those people out. But we are continuing to work very hard on that. And that group of people are obviously the group at front of mind at the moment.
But Richard, if military assets and personnel are being sent to the region, or more assets and personnel, presumably a high-ranking member of government would go to Israel, be it the Prime Minister, the Foreign Minister, or yourself?
I mean, we've been making our position very clear, and we've been talking with Israel around this as well. The attacks that were made a few weeks ago by Hamas were acts of terrorism, and they were acts that were committed on not combatants but innocent Israelis. And we have been making our position absolutely clear. Israel know that. And we've absolutely supported Israel's right to defend itself and to move against Hamas. Obviously, in doing so, we've joined our voice to that of the international community around seeing the rules of war be respected. And we've been really clear with Israel in relation to all of that. I mean, at this moment, Israel's pretty busy with dealing with all that it needs to deal with, and that's their focus.
Okay. So I'm going to stop this video and I'm going to start playing another one. But before I do that, this is really showing that the conflict that's going on in Gaza, this round of escalatory violence, is different than what we have seen in prior years. And I think that there's a metaphysical component to this. I've done a couple videos, maybe 2 or 3 videos on the metaphysical component of this, and we're all being tested. But the key here is that you're seeing policymakers position themselves in such a way where this might be a wider war, and that the Western powers, when they go in, are trying to make sure as many of their citizens are out of the region before the bombs start dropping in Iran and in Libya and in Syria and in Yemen and, in Palestine, in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. It's looking like the West Bank might be also a front. This could get pretty hairy. Now now what I want to do is I want to shift to what Cottrell had to say today. All right. And this is kind of tied to Iran here.
Goes again. No, not President Biden this time. It's his spokesman, John Kirby. So our Fox White House reporter, Jackie Heinrich, asked Kirby a series of very good questions today and basically never got a straight answer. Take a listen to some of this.
Is the assessment still the same that Iran did not directly play a role in this attack? So you had Senator Blumenthal
I
say
did
that
not
over the
say,
weekend.
I never said that Iran did not play a role. What we said, and there's been no change, what we said, Jackie, is Iran is certainly complicit here. We still haven't seen any direct, specific intelligence that says they were witting or participating or directing the attacks of October 7th.
All right. No specifics. I mean, he didn't answer your question. She said direct, and then he just kind of dodges it and deflects it. Now, here's Kirby yesterday.
We know Iran continues to support Hamas and Hezbollah. And we know that Iran is closely monitoring these events and in some cases actively facilitating these attacks and spurring on others who may want to exploit the conflict for their own good or for that of Iran. We know Iran's goal is to maintain some level of deniability here, but we're not going to allow them to do that.
You know, again, some level of deniability. A wouldn't happen without Iran, B wouldn't happen without Iran, but then he clings to this fiction that Iran had no direct intervention. It's incredible. Now take a listen to what Secretary Antony Blinken said Sunday.
We expect that there's a likelihood of escalation by Iranian proxies directed against our forces, directed against our personnel. We are taking steps to make sure that we can effectively defend our people and respond decisively if we need to. This is not what we want, not what we're looking for.
Not what we want.
Now, there's a couple things I want to mention here. In terms of the first spokesperson, was it Kirby? The United States is being tested, all right, on multiple ways, but I want to focus on the metaphysical for a second here. The United States is being tested, and it is failing the test. The United States needs to support Israel to root out Hamas and be able to give a chance for the Palestinians to be able to self-govern. They probably will not be able to self-govern. Another key data point that came out of the Zoom call today with this John, the ex-CIA guy, he mentioned, well, what I'll do is I'll bring that up in the next video. I'll scratch that. I'll bring it up in the next video. So we have too many chances to do the right thing, and we always seem to be falling short in terms of doing the right thing. All right, you know, we're worried about our hostages, right? We're worried about the Americans that are in the region, rightfully so, but we have all this intelligence about how things are happening in Iran, how things are happening in Palestine, and the over corruption that's going on in the Palestinian group. This is what John was talking about. I was going to bring it up in the next video, but I'll bring it up now. Hamas can control the Palestinians, right? And the Palestinians can't be an honest broker for peace in that region because of the corruption that's going on with the Palestinian government. So it's not just rooting out. The whole point of what John was saying is that it's not just rooting out Hamas, it's also decapitating the government of the Palestinians, or the leadership of the Palestinians, because of the corruption that's going on. So they're corrupt, and they allow for Hamas to be able to take over. So there's two things that have to happen here. A new government within the Palestinian people that's not corrupt, right? And not having this terrorist organization forcing governance on to the Palestinians. All right, so two things have to happen here: rooting out Hamas and making the corruption, getting a government that isn't corrupt within the Palestinians to be able to broker an honest peace agreement. I think that's still going to be short-lived, because I believe that, and on a metaphysical, see, that's on this plane, this agreement. That's, using policies, to try to bring peace, but they're not using the metaphysics of this. This is going to eventually come to a non-two-state solution where the Palestinians are no longer in Israel proper. but this may take 100 years. This may take 25 years, or it may be really fast-tracked and it may take 10 years. I don't know. But there's a metaphysical test that's happening, and the United States is failing. They know that if you take out Iran now, it's going to be better, but they're afraid to do it. They know, Americans know, that if you take out North Korea now, it's going to be better than later. Reason being, the ability of intercontinental missile systems being aimed at the United States or our allies, their military capabilities are going to keep on growing. And, you know, if you look at, for example, in North Korea, even though this is about Israel, North Korea and the Ukraine and, you know, the Middle East and Taiwan and China, these are all fronts that can all explode at the same time, right? North Korea, they have nuclear weapons. They have missile technology. It's not as good, but they're getting better at it. Take them out now. If you don't take them out now, you're going to have a problem, right? You look at the news, you know, about these the military parades in North Korea. You look at the soldiers; they're malnourished. They wouldn't be able to survive a 10-day war, especially if you cut off their food supply. So I mean, we should knock them out now. No, we got to keep on maintaining this 1950, you know, strategic positioning, which is making the world less safe. We should have taken out North Korea during the Clinton administration when we had a chance. But we didn't, you know. During that time period, my brother was, you know, when you're in the armed forces, the people that are in the armed forces, they know this, that, you know, sometimes you get this kind of like warning that you may be deployed. So you have to go, you have to go into this kind of like ready status, you know, for deployment within, you know, less than 24 hours. He was put in this kind of like status to be deployed to North Korea, or, you know, that you know, South Korean, North Korean front, right? 3 times when he was in the military. So this is during the Clinton administration. But we had peacemakers that went to South Korea and dealt with the North Koreans, and eventually, you know, it de-escalated. But of course, it was money, American dollars, had to de-escalate the situation. Well, you know, maybe it's time to destroy North Korea. Same thing with Iran. Maybe it's time to destroy Iran, and it's now time to destroy Gaza. Now, this is a war hawk kind of mentality with North Korea and Iran, but there's a metaphysics that's happening here. The United States is being tested. Are we going to do the right thing and support Israel? If we don't, we will lose our country. We are Rome. And Rome, even though they had a very strong military, fell. Same thing can happen to the United States. And in many ways, we probably are already falling. So keep that in mind, that if we drag our feet on this, and we don't do what is needed for the metaphysics to take hold for the Temple Mount, then the United States is going to fall. Now, there's going to be policymakers and military generals and all that will disagree with that concept. But I'm telling you, the events that are taking place in this world are not of human making. They are being guided by there's a divine spirit that's pushing this. And we're all being tested at the individual level and at the countrywide level. And anyone that is being very clear what side you're on. Are you on the Hamas side or are you on the Israeli side? It's very deontological, and but if you drag your feet and you try to create peace in this region, the countries that try to broker the peace are going to have problems economically, militarily, and socially, and these countries are going to have stress. These societies will have stress, and it's very, very high potential that we're actually seeing the crackings and the falling of the Roman Empire in the United States right now because of this kind of back and forth rhetoric. Now, Blinken, his statement was, well, if we get attacked by Iran, or if Iran, gets in, we're going to take the position that it's our right and our duty to be able to, strike back, right? But we'll have the Biden administration tell the Israelis, you know what, you need to be more peaceful in your Gaza bombing, right? So the problem that the United States has is that we take this posture that if someone does something to us, we're going to knock you. But when someone does something to Israel, we have to. The United States has to come in and say, Israel, don't do so much. The problem with the Israelis is that they can't do anything without the support of the United States. Meaning they need the military equipment, they need the dollars. Israel can't stand on its own feet is the problem. So it has to be the Americans that have to support this damn thing. But and Israel should be paying for it, but they don't, and that's a problem. But the United States, is, they act tough, right? They're acting tough, and are they really willing to take out Iran when we should have taken out Iran in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s, in the 2000s. And now all of a sudden it's 2023 and they have more nuclear capability. Again, it would have been better if we took them out earlier. But what were we worried about? Oil interests. So we're being judged. The United States is being judged. And if we don't go in all the way with this, we are going to fall as a country. Now, that seems to be counterintuitive. People would think, try to create peace, try to broker a deal, and there'll be stability in the region. But I'm telling you, this is going to get worse if we don't root out it now. This is a cancer that needs to be taken care of. What if Iran builds up their nuclear arsenal and decides, you know what, we're going to take out a city within Israel, or we're going to take out a city with, let's say, Berlin, or we're going to take out something in the United States. What is the United States going to do? This is the problem with the United States, is that it's a lot of talk and no action. So escalated war in the Middle East is the right thing to do in this case. And they're talking out of both sides of their mouth when they tell the Israelis that have a kinder and gentler machine gun hand, right, in Gaza. But Iran, if you get involved, we're going to go after you. If anything close to what happened to Israel happened to us, we would be much more violent than what Israel's doing.
Not what we want, not what we're looking for. These two, Kirby and Blinken, not answering the questions. There's no direct plain talk. That's because they're not warriors. They're playing defense, not offense. They're more comfortable sitting around the Yale faculty lounge, tossing around dreamy aspirations for peace, to use former defense deputy assistant.
That is such a great phrase. At the Yale faculty lounge, dreaming about peace, right? This is a lot deeper and can get to a world war if we don't take care of the problem. And if we kick the can down the road, your kids, right, that are young, are going to get drafted into a world war. It's better to deal with it now.
Assistant Secretary Elbridge Colby's line, Colby on our show last night. And when Secretary of State Blinken says, this is not what we want, not what we're looking for, that is so defeatist. It almost borders on victimhood. The United States is not a victim. The United States should not be wobbly. In fact, the United States should be on the offense. Blinken and Kirby are afraid of what the terrorists might do. Now, wait a second. The terrorists should be afraid of what the United States might do. These Bidens have the story completely backward and hence wrong. Iran and its terrorist puppets should be scared of American escalation against them. They're afraid of what Donald Trump would do. Years ago, the communists were afraid of what Ronald Reagan would do. But they're not afraid of what Joe Biden would do. That is the problem today. And again, Kirby talks about deterrence today. Okay, show me the deterrence. Kirby talked about additional sanctions. Show me the additional sanctions. All right, how many Iranian tankers with cargo bound for China were stopped by U.S. sanctions today? How many Iranian banks were put out of business by U.S. financial sanctions today? None that I know of. And of course, there was no Biden snapback.
This is a great point. Once we retreated with our tail between our legs when we left Afghanistan, right, and left all that equipment there, that was a signal to the terrorists. The United States isn't going to really go all out, right? That's worrisome, you know. Well, we moved these aircraft carriers, you know, and these troops for a potential regional, a much larger regional conflict, right? But again, it's defensive. Well, what it should be is that it should be offensive, just like Cudlow was saying. You know, this is what I've been saying. You maybe said it more articulately than I did. But the point here is that knock Iran out now, become more offensive, not defensive, right? Start to be playing the chessboard as a grandmaster and not as a novice. And if we do that, there's going to be a blessing that comes. If we don't, we're going to be cursed. We're going to be cursed. I'm telling you, we're going to be, it's going to turn 9/11 into a firecracker. And it's going to be the breaking of this country.
Of the Iranian ballistic missile sanctions for the UN Security Council Resolution 1223. So I don't really know, I don't really know what Mr. Kirby is talking about. And for Kirby, or anybody else in the Biden administration, to keep denying Iran's direct involvement in planning and financing Hamas and other terrorist acts is pure nonsense. You know, Mr. Kirby better watch out. People are going to start calling him Baghdad Bob, for those who remember Saddam Hussein's harebrained spokesperson many years ago. Now look, another point. Take a listen to what John Radcliffe said last night.
Americans weren't killed in some kinder or gentler manner. Americans were beheaded. Americans were raped. Americans were stabbed, shot. All of that has taken place, and there's no outrage from this administration.
That is powerful testimony. The Bidens may not realize it, but the terrorists have committed acts of war against the United States. Even Kirby said there may have been a dozen attacks on U.S. troops and ships in the Middle East since October 7th. The killing of over 30 Americans, the hostage taking of maybe a dozen more, are acts of war. Firing on American ships, embassies, and Air Force bases, These are acts of war. When will the Bidens wake up to those facts? When will the Bidens stop appeasing Iran and their terrorist puppets and begin a serious campaign of deterrence? Will they ever?
The Democrats sending money to Iran are on the take. And that's part of the problem. Again, the United States is being judged and tested. And if they fail the test, it's going to be the destruction of this country. It's not going to be, the next day, but you're going to see this staircasing downward of this country. The reason why we are in the situation we're in right now is because the Palestinians were not pushed out decades ago. The reason why we are in the situation we are in right now is because Iran was not taken out decades ago. The reason why we are in the situation we are in right now is because we did not take out North Korea in the 90s. The reason why we are in the situation we are in right now is because we advanced NATO towards Russia and created a proxy war in the Ukraine. The reason why we are in this situation right now is because we funded China so we could import deflation, so we can buy cheap goods for the last 25 years. That's why we're in the situation. And now it's time to clean house, to fix it all up, and to knock these rogue regimes out of existence. We don't do that, it's going to be the fall of the Roman Empire. Now what I want to do is play this video from Fox News. This is, I think this is the 5. I think this excerpts from the 5. And this is dealing with Bill Maher.
In liberal cities and on left-wing campuses. Anti-Israel agitators out in full force in New York, pelting cops with eggs, bottles, and even fireworks. 19 were arrested in the chaos. College campuses also continue to be a hotbed of anti-Semitism. Pro-Palestinian professors and students taking over the library at NYU while demanding a ceasefire. Kids at Columbia.
Now, according to John today, the ex-CIA guy, and I don't think this is true, but he said that the protesting that was going on around New York was somewhat the same agitators that were from Occupy Wall Street. Now, I remember Occupy Wall Street because I was, I saw all this happening in Lower Manhattan. I don't think that's true. That part I don't think is true. And I'll go into more detail about that when I do the video on John's Zoom call. But this here is problematic because, again, you're starting to see where the hearts are of individuals. I made it very clear. I'm on the side of this. I'm on the side of the Israelis. I'm on the side of the building of and I take a more extreme approach to this. I'm on the side of the Temple Mount is going to be going to be rebuilt, right? And that means that the mosque is going to be taken down, and that there is a wider border of Israel that will be established, and that there will be peace in this world because of this, and that each nation is going to have to provide a peace offering at the Temple Mount. I take a very extremist point of view on this. And I'm not overly religious or orthodox by any means. I'm middle of the road. But I sense that there is a metaphysical thing that's happening here, and that this has to happen to allow peace in the world. And there's a high probability if the United States doesn't act accordingly to this plan, that the United States will be a fallen nation. Now you got to remember, we're looking at the history arc of this. Of it may be in 30 years, and maybe 216 years. We're not sure yet. It defaults to 216, but it can be ushered in earlier. All right, and there's two reasons for the usherance: either because of extreme depravity of humanity, or extreme humanity. Right? People that are living in peace, and they're and the Jews are following the mitzvahs, and the non-Jews are following the Noahide laws and all this. If that happens, then the temple, all this stuff that I'm talking about, doesn't default to 216 years from now. It defaults to now. The same thing can happen if there's extreme depravity in humanity. It'll default to now, right? And I think that is what's happening. And we're seeing stepping stones to this, right? So if we don't choose the right side individually and at the countrywide level, it will be very clear who will get the blessing and who will not. And you're seeing, here's the destruction of the liberals in New York and in the United States in real time. You're seeing that they're saying that they want peace. They're saying that they want to to have a cleaner environment. They want to protect the climate and all this stuff, right? But they're literally supporting terrorists. I have a hard time believing. Now, I may be biased, but I have a hard time believing that God is going to bless these types of people.
Kids at Columbia University are handing out Palestinian head wraps and planning a walkout this week. And Harvard's bracing for more protests after students held a die-in protest. Liberal comedian Bill Maher blasting the snot-nosed brats for siding with the terrorists.
Don't go to an elite college, because as recent events have shown, it just makes you stupid. There are few, if any, positives to come out of what happened in Israel, but one of them is opening America's eyes to how higher education has become indoctrination into a stew of bad ideas, among them the simplistic notion that the world is a binary place where everyone is either an oppressor or oppressed. The same students who will tell you that words are violence and silence is violence were very supportive when Hamas terrorists went on a rape and murder rampage worthy of the Vikings. They knew where to point the fingers at the murdered, and then it was off to ethics class.
Greg, Bill Maher sounds familiar.
That is like everything we've said for the past 10 years. I welcome him to this table.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? It's about time. I mean, imagine being a Jewish kid on these campuses right now.
Right.
I mean, you can't go there. I mean, you have to basically keep your mouth shut. Staging a die-in.
The reason why the metaphysics of this is so important to take to really grasp. Several years ago, a few years ago, not several years ago, a few years ago, on campus at Harvard, I saw the student body that was the undergrad promoting late-term abortions in the Science Center, all right, as individuals were leaving their lecture, in the corridor. I think that college and university is a place to, one, gain skills, but also to get different perspectives on things, and kind of be able to reason, why is the world the way it is? Could it get better, and all this? But, it's very true that universities today, especially, the top 20, you have a student body that is becoming ultra liberal, and they are becoming extremist. I remember, being at the Harvard-Yale game, and they postponed it for 45 minutes during halftime, right? And they went on the field. This game was at the New Haven stadium, so it was hosted by Yale. But, this Harvard-Yale game was postponed for 45 minutes because of their protesting on the field. And they eventually, the authorities came in and removed them from the field. And it was basically due to, climate change and divest the oil interests of the endowments of Harvard and all this. And in a lot of ways, I think the Harvard faculty supported these students, and potentially even the president, Picau, who has already left now. But I think that, that was a symptom of a larger problem, right? It's these same types of students that are now promoting Hamas, promoting, the Palestinian cause, and not realizing that their decisions and their positioning on this is going to be judged on a metaphysical plane, and that bad things are going to happen to them. I'm telling you that there's a bigger thing that's happening here. This is not the run-of-the-mill conflict in the Middle East that we've seen, for the last 50 years. This is something much bigger.
After one of the most gruesome massacres in history, they deserve to get their asses kicked, but they won't. I think what we're seeing is the death of what I coined ocean privilege. We used to have these moats around us, they were a buffer zone, and they were only pierced a couple of times, 9/11 and Pearl Harbor, and some assorted homegrown Islamic terror like at the Pulse nightclub. But we had this ocean privilege. We never really had to worry. We got complacent. In fact, we allowed our ocean privilege to get chipped away, and it got chipped away in 3 ways. One, our border collapse. Now you can get in if you really try, and we might even help you. So instead of adding to ocean privilege, we poked a big giant hole in it. Second, you got homegrown radicalism, which we're seeing now in the demonstrations at colleges. Whether we knew it or not, we were funding an ideology on campuses that were promoting our demise, probably for the last 30, 40 years. And the process is ongoing. It's a war against the West, but it's from within. Then
Right. I totally agree with him on this. And what's scary is that these individuals, and I'm not sure if if they're going to say something similar to this in the video, but these individuals that are at these campuses are going to be the leaders of companies, and they're going to be in politics in the next 10 years or less. That means that the landscape, the zeitgeist of America is going to be liberal, and it's going to be ultra liberal. So we're losing. Now it is true that when a student is in college, that they're probably more liberal, and when they get older, they become more conservative, right? There's kind of like the spectrum, right? They're probably much more liberal when they're younger, and then they start to realize how the world really works, and they move towards conservatism. And if someone's conservative in college, most likely they'll stay conservative, if not become a little bit more conservative. But because there are these extreme positions where they think it's okay for Hamas to do what it did, the barbaricness of it, right? When they start working in corporate America and they start becoming representatives in Congress and stuff, right? You're going to get policies that are antithetical to what really made America great, all right? So you're going to hear, destruction of capitalism. You're going to start hearing, destruction of freedom of speech, the civil liberties. And we're going to move towards this socialism that's going to be antithetical to what everyone thought America was. People are leaving countries that come to America for freedom. But we're having these elitists in these elite schools. These kids, they're going to be brought into the fold, right, of power. And they're going to project that liberalism, and it's going to be top down. This is why I said the United States is being tested. And if we don't side on Israel on this and knock out the terrorism, root out the terrorism in that region, that's Hamas, that's Hezbollah, that's ISIS, that's, Islamic Jihad, that's, that's Iran, right? Then what's going to happen is that we are going to get the curse, and that curse, part of that curse, is going to be the society that turns more and more and more and more liberal, more and more socialistic, and it'll break the country. It will die from within. This is the curse that I'm talking about. And it's not that far away. It's not that far away. Now, there are people that are trying to fight against it by saying, well, they won't hire these people. So, but that's only like a speed bump. There's this big wave coming of these, of the youth that has this very liberal mentality, and they don't even know why they have it, because, the school system has trained them at such a young age to be this way. Right? The school system that you and I paid taxes for has created students like this. And it's going to be the curse if we as the adults don't force the issue and destroy Hamas, destroy Islamic Jihad and all this terrorism. This country will fall because of the choices that we make right now.
Then you add to it the contagious brainwash that comes from the social media. We've collapsed the barrier between ideologues and this country. So now you can get that stuff right in your own room, and it can spread. And basically the oppressor versus the oppressed virus is now on every campus. You have kids who know nothing but that. Why do you think so many people are obsessed with the Roman Empire, right? It's because something once mighty got complacent, assumed that bread and circuses would keep people happy. That's now carbs and TikTok. And what we're seeing now is that it doesn't. And who knew that if you got rid of patriotism and religion and exceptionalism and the value of the melting pot, it would lead to this? Well, it has.
What would you rather have, white privilege or ocean privilege?
Oh, boy, that's a tough one.
White ocean privilege. I'll answer it for you, Dana Carino.
Well, I think what's important here is the transparency, and that is key. And for as hard as it is to watch these videos and to know exactly what happened or to listen to the stories of what happened, it is so important. Barry Weiss at the Free Press is doing a great job of sort of oral testimony to make sure that it is out there. And I would make every one of these kids listen to it. I'd love to give these kids a map that had no names on it yet and see if they could tell me, where is Israel?
Oh, that'd be fun.
Right? You know exactly how that would go. The other thing this weekend in India, there was a protest of college kids, and they're out there protesting. They're carrying the Italian flag, which is also red, white, and green. Hello, like they didn't even know what they were doing. But the other point I would like to make is that there was a journalist from I think it was one of the New York Magazine, and they tweeted that there had been evidence that Hamas had decapitated a child. We got a ton of social media pushback. So they did a second tweet and said, well, I'm actually not sure if the baby was beheaded or if the baby's head fell off after the trauma. Imagine thinking that you actually have to say that so that the online mob won't come after you. The fact is the baby was killed and it was beheaded. That is the evidence that has come out, as hard as it is to hear. And I would make sure all these kids had to hear it.
Judge Janine.
I wonder if they are evil, so evil that they think that the Jews deserve it, or maybe they're not seeing what we're seeing. Maybe they just want to deny that it's existing. And that's why Israel released the unedited video that Trey Young's talked about that apparently none of the major networks are reporting on. They don't want to talk about how horrific it is to have these babies be beheaded or have eyes gouged out or women burned alive. And so all they talk about are the Palestinians, the poor Palestinians. There's no mention of any of the Jews, and if there are, they deserve to die. And so you say to yourself, you know, they went from cancel culture.
We're seeing in real time the division of people and where their hearts really lie. And everyone is going to get judged, and everyone is going to have some level of punishment, and there are going to be certain groups that have a higher degree of blessing. And I think that the judge is right. This is a continuation of the cancel culture. You know, that's a good analogy. A good description. Mankind is getting out of control, and systems like TikTok and systems like different types of social media has not helped the situation, and we've lost our humanity, and we have a chance to snap back to it. But if we continue down this road, we as Americans are going to lose our country. And it is now time to push back on the liberals and show to them that their policies are wrong. For example, climate change, you know what? The sea levels have not changed. And oh, by the way, this natural gas issue with stoves, especially in New York, they're trying to make them illegal. This is just a propaganda scheme by BlackRock to promote their ESG funds. So these people that are coming from these schools that, prestigious schools, and they're pushing this agenda, they're being herded by money managers. That's just climate change. That's just the climate change issue. Then you have the whole gender fluidity issues, right? And the changing of words, the use of words, the erosion of freedom of speech, the erosion of being able to protect yourself through the Second Amendment, the erosion of keeping the government out of your business. These are all things that conservatives or just middle of the road centrists can say, listen here, liberal, you don't know what you're talking about. And whatever their common du jour is of the day, you go against it. You say, you don't know what you're talking about. When you see a liberal saying that Hamas is okay to doing what they did, then you tell them, no, it's not okay. When you see someone that's BLM, pushing BLM movement, no, you say it's not okay. One, you're a corrupt organization. The BLM movement is a corrupt organization. That's been proven. But not just that. It's about superiority. It's not about equality. It's about racial superiority and a push for reparations. If you don't fight it, they'll continue to grow, and we will lose our country.
Sure. Because they didn't like what you said, or they didn't like the way you were conducting yourself, to now literally denying the Holocaust, erasing history. And now, they deny your existence, and they want to deny your right to exist. And that's why they're tearing down these posters of people and kids who are missing, who are either missing or are hostages. How can you deny that humanity? They're evil because if they're college students, they've got to know how to access this information. And it almost makes you believe that they are in support of destroying the Jews. And then you have to go back and say, well, what have the Jews done to you? Did the Jews get up on October 7th and say, let's destroy Hamas? No, they got up to try to survive in this tough neighborhood, as it's called, of Israel. It's horrific.
So is this evil?
Seems pretty evil to me. I would like to believe that they don't understand actually the history of this and what happened, and that their social media feeds, and that was a huge theme of the Bill Maher discussion on Friday, that they are being fed a complete counter narrative to the ones that we are fed on ours and the information that we seek out. And they don't have access to good information about this. And we have to do our best to keep bombarding them with that kind of good information. But, you know, I saw AOC was interviewed by Mehdi Hassam over the weekend, and she's calling for a ceasefire, and he kept pushing her. What does that mean? Does that mean Hamas is in charge? So, well, for a while, ended up with, yeah, for a while, that's how it's got to be. And that is not a viable solution. The Israelis won't settle for that, and they shouldn't. And the US won't settle for that, and they shouldn't. I would encourage everyone to watch. It's a 10-minute video, so it's a bit long, but even just a few minutes of it. There's a business professor at Columbia, Israeli, who was speaking out the other night, talking about how now the university can't protect Jewish students, and that parents need to be aware of this, that this has become a completely unsafe environment to be in. And you see that this could have a real ripple effect on people.
Yeah.
That when you think about where you're going to send your kids, are you going to be?
The reality of the situation is that you live in a society that you think is understanding. You live in a society you think it's safe. You think that it's open to all religions, and the reality of the situation is that it's just below the surface. Anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, right under the surface. It just so happens that in this cycle of the news, it's anti-Semitism, you know, anti-Israeli, anti-Jew, right? You know, it is true that anti-Semitism is also against the Muslims too, not just the Jews, you know. But you know, there's Islamophobia, and there's, you know, Jew-phobia. There's hate within people. It's just below the surface. All it takes is just an event like this to show its face, right? And anti-Semitism, especially against Jews, is really pervasive. And you know, a lot of people aren't paying attention to it, and people are being judged. I'm telling you, this is a metaphysical thing that's happening here, and this is a stepping stone for the Temple Mount. And it's you know, you have an amalgamation. You have this kind of multicultural world, right? Especially in the United States, but you know, the world is becoming more multicultural, right? And if people lived in peace and truly care about their neighbor, right, then everything's okay. But the reality is it's amalgamated, but there is still this division and chargedness because of different religions, different personalities, different ethnicities, right? It's truly not amalgamated. And all it takes is something like this, and we're getting polarized, right? And for to know who to punish and who to bless, you have to pull these things apart. All right. I was learning a piece of Talmud with a rabbi and some other Jews around us, and it talks about during the Messianic time where there are Jews that don't know that they're Jewish because they kind of drifted away from their religion. And there are Jews that think they're Jewish that aren't really Jewish, right? And then there are Jews that know that they're Jewish and are really Jewish, right? But there's a small percentage of Jews out there that aren't really Jewish. And there's a bigger percentage of Jews that are Jewish that don't know that they're Jewish. During the Messianic time, there is going to be this splitting to know who's Jewish and who's really not Jewish. And then there will be a process to purify the Jews. And then this is another of many things that have to happen for the rebuilding of the temple. All right. Now, in the ones that thought they were Jewish that aren't really Jewish, the interpretation is that they'll have to be they'll have an option to convert to Judaism to be able to be in the blessing and be part of the temple rebuilding. The ones that are Jewish but didn't know that they were Jewish, they'll be in the blessing fold. But because they didn't know that they were Jewish, then they would have to go through a learning process to understand what exactly do they have to follow. All 613 mitzvahs and all the the rules and regulations. So there's going to be a learning process that's going to take place for a very large percentage of the Jews out there. Something similar is happening here. Remember, there's Fibonacci of a Fibonacci. I keep on rolling an R in there. Fibonacci, but the larger one is the world in general, good versus evil. People that are for terrorism or not for terrorism. There's probably more dimensions to the division, but there's this division that's taking place, right? And then in the people that are on the good side, then there's going to be another division that takes place, right? So there's a Fibonacci of a Fibonacci, right? So that theme keeps on popping up, in this whole context.
Going to be looking at one of these universities that has a dean that can't find the guts or even talk to the fundraising director. Look at all of the donations that are being pulled from these universities that said, if you can't find it within yourself to say that my people have a right to exist, you don't get a new library. And I'm ashamed to have gone there. And that is not going to stop anytime soon.
It's almost as dangerous as being a conservative on college campus. It's tough. Up next, Bidenomics is destroying the American dream. Hey, Sean.
Well, those are the three videos. I do think that the United States is being judged on this. And if we don't pick the right path, we have the potentiality of being the Roman Empire that falls. With that said, please subscribe to all my channels. I have 3 channels on YouTube. The link is in the description of this video and all my videos. I also have Rumble, Bitchute, and Brighteon. Please subscribe to those channels. Link is in the description of this video. And please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You can donate on Stripe or PayPal on the homepage of my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com, to help support my news coverage. You can also donate on Buy Me a Coffee. The link is in the description. And then you can also have the option to join my Patreon channel to help support my news coverage. In addition, please go to my store. That's on the website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. I offer a lot of supplements, different types of supplements. I have structural nanosilver, I have C60, I have all natural deodorants, and a plethora of supplements. All right. So some of the things that you can get on my store is structural nanosilver soaps. I have many different scents. This one happens to be oatmeal spice. I have lemongrass and peppermint and charcoal tea tree and, you know, a couple others. Another supplement that's really important that I take every day is the lignans. Mix it with, this is a powder form, so you can put it in water and drink it. But what I do is I mix it in hummus. And what this will do is it will help with your immune system and help with your hormonal health. I mix it also with a probiotic in my hummus, and I just take it in the afternoon, for lunch. The all-natural deodorant from Rainbow Herbals. I have citrus and peppermint tea tree. This is made from essential oils from the Himalayas, all natural, extremely high quality. This has no aluminum in it, and this bar will be a detox for you, but also, be used as a deodorant. So please try this product out. It is a high quality, very high quality product, excellent product that Rainbow Herbals makes. Another structural nanosilver product that I have is lozenges. I carry menthol and a green apple. I'll have 2 more flavors for you shortly. I have this excellent toothpaste. It's the best toothpaste that you can get. This is made from the structural nanosilver. It has no fluoride in this. So what this will do is whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, reduce the plaque, reduce the gum irritation, and improve your cardiovascular health. Because this structural nanosilver, it's going to neutralize the pathogens that are around your teeth that causes the plaque buildup. And if you reduce the plaque buildup, you're reducing the gingivitis and you're reducing the cardiovascular disease. So this is an excellent product. It's the best toothpaste that you can buy. It's a lot better than Alex Jones's toothpaste that he sells. So instead of supporting Alex Jones, you might as well support DrPaulCottrell. So buy my toothpaste. Get 3 bottles or 3 tubes of this. Silver gel. This is a great product. You can use it as a skincare product. You just put it on your skin, keep it on overnight, and what you'll notice is it will improve the health of the skin. And if you put it on your face, you'll notice a tightening of the skin. This also can be used to help heal abrasions and cuts, minor cuts, burns. It neutralizes pathogens. That's part of the reason why it heals better, is it's keeping the wound clean. And not only that, what will happen is that you can put it on your hands, around your mouth, around your nostrils, around your ears, right? And it will neutralize pathogens. So what that will do is it'll keep you healthy while you're going through the cold season and other problems that we have gone through recently. Multivitamin. You need multivitamins because they're very important as cofactors in the metabolic processes that are taking place in your body. I have an excellent multivitamin. Take this. You're gonna notice the difference, but also start taking some of the other supplements that I offer on the store, like the zinc and the magnesium, or the vitamin C and the magnesium, or the omega-3. That's really important for cardiovascular health. The vitamin D3 that helps to absorb calcium and helps for gene expression and apoptosis of cells that need to go through apoptosis. Most people are low on vitamin D3. Good night formula made out of tryptophan and melatonin. Great supplement that I offer to allow you to sleep and get those 3 REM cycles that you need, so you feel well rested and that you're going to be able to solidify memory. Memory loss is partially due to lack of sleep. Also, your body filters out toxins, especially your cells filter out these toxins while it's in the sleep mode. Your brain produces proteins, right? and some of those proteins are not fully broken down, and they're deposited into the cerebral spinal fluid. And that cerebral spinal fluid eventually gets into the lymphatic system and gets filtered out. And most of the filtration of the CSF is during your sleep. The better sleep that you have, and the more regular your sleep, the better you have in filtering out some of the toxins and some of these entangled proteins that the brain is creating. So if you are not sleeping well, you're increasing the chances of memory loss because of this lack of filtration, because of lack of sleep. Get the Good Night formula and you'll actually have better brain function over time. I also have Clarity Factor. Clarity Factor helps to reduce the brain fog and get those neurons firing so you have better dendritic connections. Another great product to slow down aging. I have C60 in avocado, in coconut, in 2-ounce, 4-ounce, and an 8-ounce bottle. And what that will do is it'll allow you to reduce those reactive oxygen species, bring down that cellular stress, and improve the mitochondrial health of the cell. When you do that, you'll have more energy, your cells are healthier, and you will age slower because it's a very strong antioxidant. Very high quality product. It's a little pricey, but it is an extremely high quality product. If you follow my protocol, reduce pathogens with structural nanosilver like the liquids, like Max 35, Health Max 35 or Health Max 14. You take the C60 to bring down that reactive oxygen species and take turmeric and ashwagandha to bring down that inflammatory response. Then what's going to happen is that you are going to age slower. All right. If you follow this protocol over a period of time. I also sell collagen to help to improve your skin. So if you take the gel topically and put it on your skin every night, you take you take the collagen. So the gel is on topically every night. Take the collagen and the vitamin C in the morning, right? And you drink 64 ounces of filtered water, you're going to start seeing an improvement in your skin. You'll have a boost of that improvement on your skin when you take the C60 and the resveratrol, because the C60 is reducing the reactive oxygen species and improving the cellular health of the basal layer in your skin, right? At the dermal layer, there's a basal layer that repopulates your skin. That improves, and the resveratrol is getting rid of senescent cells. So you're going to actually look younger, age slower when you follow this protocol. So I have a ton of products that if you follow and you use regularly, you are going to slow down your aging and you're going to improve your health. And if you have chronic situations, you're going to start seeing an improvement, if not a complete elimination. It's very simple. Be proactive in your health. Proper diet, proper exercise, proper nutrition, proper sleep, proper exercising of your brain, reading, writing, talking to people, following an anti-aging protocol is going to improve your health. Preventative medicine is the best medicine. Invest in your body now, because when you get older and you don't do it now, you are going to pay a lot more later in cardiovascular disease, problems with your pancreas, problems with your gut health, problems with brain function, all these things that start to happen when you get 65 years old or even in your 50s, and you start having all these problems. It will cost you tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars over time to treat. While you could have focused on preventative medicine and have more energy, be more vibrant, and have more vitality, and not have these larger expenses that a lot of people have when they're diabetic and they have cardiovascular disease. Trust me, I know exactly what I'm talking about. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, follow the protocol, get the supplements, and improve your health. Thank you for listening. Make sure you go to the store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description of this video. Again, it's the-studio-reykjavik.com. Reykjavik.com. Get the supplements, improve your health. Thank you for listening, and don't be a liberal.